That title you clicked onto should be an oxymoron, right? The gossiping Christian. Doesn't make much sense, but let's talk about that. I am Zach. This is The Average Christian, a project about helping people to learn what it means to have a real relationship with God. We're just trying to flesh this out and see what this looks like in a practical setting every day. I hate to say grind, but that's the idea. Just keeping moving forward in this relationship and growing with God. And so we're looking at the truth. We're trying to understand this as best we can. We're also dispelling myths about Christianity. And we're glad you're along with us. If you're listening to a podcast, thank you so much. We ask that at some point when you're done listening to this, rate it, review it, subscribe to us as well. And that helps get the word out. If you're on YouTube, we welcome you. And we're asking you, if you haven't already, support us by hitting the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and that lets you know when new content is available, usually on Thursdays. And also like it. If the video helps you, just give us a thumbs up. That helps grow the channel as well. Comments are welcomed, even the negative ones, but comments are most welcome about this content, about others that you'd like to see as well. We take suggestions, and if it helps other people, you know somebody that can benefit from this, share it with them. And everybody can benefit from this one, right? Because if you know me, you know, man, he has trouble running his mouth, and that's true. And I'm ashamed to admit it. The guy that edits these is one of those guys that you look at and say, that's how I want to be, because Clayton doesn't talk. And he usually hardly ever talks about anybody else. This is one I struggle with, and I talk way too much. And I know a lot of us do too. And for a variety of reasons that I don't know I'll have time to get into. And it's usually not a popular subject, right? If this video was about abortion, if this video was about homosexuality or whatever else, these hot button issues that people would click all over and be like, yeah, that's what I want to hear, or I disagree with it, or whatever. You start talking about stuff like gossip, which hits me right in my face, is right in my backyard, is part of that log that's in my eye. You're getting personal. It's like they used to say, you went from preaching to meddling. Well, we're about to meddle here, and we're going to define this too. And I'm hopefully, if you have some of these excuses, I'm going to take some of these away from you as in reasons why you gossip or slander, and also differentiate those terms. 2 Corinthians 12 and verse 20, and this is going to be rapid fire. So I don't know that all the verses will get put up, but at least you can take notes. You can watch it again. You can pause and look these up. But I'm going to try to give you plenty of verses to illustrate. So 2 Corinthians 12:20, for I fear that perhaps when I come, I may find you, Paul's talking to these brethren in Corinth, when I may find you not as I wish, but that you may find me not as you wish, that perhaps there may be quarreling, jealousy, anger, hostility, slander, gossip, conceit, and disorder, which divides people. Yeah, people want to know why Christians are so divided. Part of it is things like this, talking about each other and making disparaging remarks about each other. Literally, gossip is a whispering, which is why we do it, right? We say something, we look like this. I've heard comedians joke about, racism. They try to portray it in movies and they make it just so outlandish and out front. That's not how racism works. You usually say something about somebody, and you look around to see if somebody's watching, you say it. That's what we do when we talk about somebody else and we whisper about them. We're gossiping. We don't want them to hear it, so we make sure the coast is clear. The magical murmuring of a charmer of snakes is what gossip is compared to. It destroys relationships. Proverbs 16:28, a dishonest man spreads strife, and a whisperer separates close friends. Proverbs 17 and verse 9. How many of you, by the way, with that last verse, have destroyed or hurt a relationship badly because somebody found out what you were saying behind their back? Proverbs 17:9. I'm going to have to stop doing this somewhere in the video too. Whoever covers an offense seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates close friends. Sometimes we're just talking about people's business that doesn't need to be talked about. It doesn't need to be everybody else's business because someone's confided in us. So that can be a problem with gossip. Gossip is a source of trouble. In Proverbs 26:20-22, for lack of wood, the fire goes out. Where there is no whisperer, quarreling ceases. As charcoal to hot embers and wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome man for kindling strife. The words of a whisperer are like delicious morsels, They go down into the inner parts of the body because everybody likes to hear some juicy about somebody else. Maybe not everybody, but you get it. Most of us do. And most of us like to share that with each other. And we feel good about it sometimes, like, well, we're brethren, so this is my close friend. And we make excuses for it that I'll talk about in a little bit. Proverbs 6:19, a false witness who breathes out lies and one who sows discord among brothers. And it's also part of a depraved mind and life. That passage, maybe some of you, maybe many of you are familiar with in Romans chapter 1, where it's giving this list of sins that God gave them over to a reprobate or a depraved mind. Gossip and slander in the middle of that list. Now, slander is a little bit different. It is defamation. It is evil speaking. It is speaking about somebody in an evil manner. Gossip may be, I'm just sharing information that I shouldn't be sharing. It's going to hurt somebody, but to slander somebody is to speak evil of them, to defame them in some way. 1 Peter 2:1 warns us to put it away. James chapter 4:11-12, do not speak evil against one another, brothers. The one who speaks evil against a brother or judges his brother speaks evil against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you're not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is only one lawgiver and judge, he who is able to save and destroy. But you who are to judge, who are you to judge your neighbor? That's a good question, because I'm not able to save or destroy anybody, not in the terms that God is, and yet I'm going to talk about them and judge them like that and discuss them in those sort of ways. James 5:9, do not grumble against one another, brothers. Well, that kills off a lot of complaining, doesn't it? Complaining about other people. I'm guilty. I admit, I repent constantly about this. And I confess to you now, this is one of my weaknesses. But grumbling against one another and sowing discord, and it may make you look good to somebody else, maybe make you closer friends to a degree with somebody else while you're destroying another person. In Leviticus 19:16, you go way back into the old law, and he says, you shall not go around as a slanderer among your people. You shall not stand up against the life of your neighbor. I am the Lord. He's the only one that gets to do these types of things as far as being that judge, kind of the parallel to what was being said in James chapter 4. But you're not going to do this in front of me because I'm God and I say so. A slanderer, a talebearer, an informer, somebody who a scandal monger, which means somebody who's traveling about peddling this stuff. Scandal, who's doing what, when, and how so, and so forth. As in a merchant, somebody who traffics slander, somebody who traffics and trades in this type of stuff. These people, by the way, and this is true, cannot be trusted. Proverbs 11:13, whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered. You see in a common thread too here is keep your mouth shut. That's what I'm hearing toward me. Keep your mouth shut. Proverbs 20:19, whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, therefore do not associate with a simple babbler. It's starting to sting, isn't it? I mean, it is me, literally. A simple babbler, acts of a depraved nation in Jeremiah 6 and chapter 9 as well. I won't read those now, but Jeremiah 6:28, Jeremiah 9:4. Look at the way the psalmist speaks of it in Psalm 50:20. You sit and speak against your brother. You slander your own mother's son, meaning it's unbelievable that somebody would do this. Unbelievable that you would slander somebody else, somebody that you're related to. And I don't care so much about blood relation and kin, as we say down here in the South. We're talking about spiritual relatives, and we're slandering like this. Result of idle time and thoughts in 1 Timothy chapter 5:13. Besides that, they learn to be idlers, going about from house to house. Not only idlers, but also gossips and busybodies, saying what they should not. I know in the context of talking about widows there, but you men who think that this is just a woman thing need to go watch that episode of Andy Griffith, right? I'm kidding. You'll have to look that up if you're not familiar. Men have the same problem as well. It's not just, he just happens to be mentioning it in the context of widows who have idle time, but men can fall into these same traps here. Destroys people, as we well know in Proverbs 11:9. It is the devil's work. It's what he does. Revelation 12:10. And then Proverbs 10:18. The one who conceals hatred has lying lips. Whoever utters slander is a fool. And that, again, that slander is whispering, defamation, evil report, unfavorable saying, to move gently, to say things behind people's backs that you wouldn't say in front of them. That's why keyboard courage is so prevalent, because you can sit on your phone or on your keyboard and type anything and say anything and be, I can't really, nobody knows who you are. I can't find my wording right now, but nobody knows who you are, and you're hiding behind this cloak. And what are you really doing? You're just being a coward. And any of us who are talking about somebody else, whether to make them look bad or make ourselves look good, we're just being cowards. Luke 6:45, the good person out of the good treasure of his heart produces good, and the evil person out of the evil treasure produces evil. For out of the abundance of the heart, his mouth speaks. Matthew 12 and verse 36, this helps bring it home. I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give account for every careless word they speak. Let me deal, as I finish up this video, with a couple of things you didn't hear referenced in those passages. One of them was dealing with truth or lies. Slander sometimes has to do with lies, but gossip and slander don't hinge on whether the thing is true or not. Because some of you have said, just like I have at times, or I've heard people say, well, I'm not saying anything that's not true. Doesn't mean you ought to be saying it. Truth has no bearing on it. There are plenty of things that are true that you shouldn't be talking about that involve other people. You say, well, I'm not saying anything to you that I wouldn't say to their face or haven't already said to them. What does person C have to do with you, A, and the other person B? Nothing. And if they need to hear it and they've heard it, then you've addressed the person with whom you have the issue. The other person has nothing to do with this. And all you're doing is relaying information to them that can hurt them to make the other person look bad, which is sometimes what we want to accomplish. What's another one that we use? Here's the big one, right? Well, I need to vent. And for a long time, I thought, that's got some validation to it, because I know, and I have these people that are close to me in my life, and I need to talk to them about this person's bothering me, whether it's my boss or whether it's my friends or whether it's a brother or a sister or somebody I don't get along with. Whatever the case is, I need to vent. And then I thought about prayer. And then I read the Psalms. There are psalms called imprecatory psalms, not to drop any big wording here, but imprecatory psalms. And what those psalms are talking about is a plea to God to do something about my enemies. I want God, you to deal with these people who are unrighteous and who are making life so difficult for me. I want you to deal with them. That's venting. Oftentimes we think about prayer as in, I need to ask God for something. I need to tell him thank you for something. And the very one who wants to hear 1 Peter 5:7, casting all your cares on him, is actually talking about venting and opening up and saying, this is how I'm feeling. This person is bothering. And you can do that with God, because God knows those people. He knows their hearts, and you're not slandering or tearing them down in God's view. And you can actually say, this is really killing me, this situation. And you're not actually gossiping and slandering. So there is your response for venting. I hope this helps you. It always helps me. This is not exhaustive in any way. There's much more to say about it. But man, you and I have got to stop talking about other people. And I'm frankly got to stop saying stuff like this and just go do it. I hope this helps. Let me know if you have comments on it.